Sergeant Alvin York of Tennessee, the outstanding hero of the World War and one of the greatest individual fighters in the history of modern or legendary warfare. In the heart of the Argonne Forest, on October 8, 1918, practically unassisted, he whipped an entire German machine gun battalion, killing 28 of the enemy, capturing 35 machine guns, and with the help of a handful of doughboys, bringing in 132 prisoners. His is probably the most dramatic human story that has come out of the World War. It is one of the most significant spiritual documents in the world today. It has the stir and the sweep of an American epic. What you did was the greatest thing accomplished by any private soldier of all the armies of Europe. The Army investigation of the action concluded with a report to General Pershing's headquarters that stated, "The part which Corporal York individually played in this attack is difficult to estimate. Practically unassisted, he captured 132 Germans, took about 35 machine guns, and killed no less than 25 of the enemy, later to be found by others on the scene of York's extraordinary exploit. This story has been carefully checked in every possible detail from headquarters of this division and is entirely substantiated. The story of Sergeant Alvin York is the stuff of legend. His real-world achievements are beyond the imaginations of Hollywood's best script doctors. York is one of the most famous American riflemen of all time. He brought the incredible natural accuracy of the American woodsman to the battlefields of France during World War I. In a previous video, I argued that the early life of Alvin York was reminiscent of the Indo-European Männerbund, or koryos. I will use the award-winning movie about his life to further illustrate some aspects of the Männerbund, but keep in mind that the scenes are highly dramatized and compressed representations of the stages of his life. These life stages are hell-raising hunter of the koryos, initiation into the teuta, acquisition of property and woman, war, and homecoming. We will look at the fundamental Indo-European distinction between village and forest, with quotes from Kershaw illustrated by movie scenes. In the movie, the church represents the teuta, the village and the people, and the movie opens with York and his band disturbing a church service. This contrast can be code-worded village-forest. In Vedic and Brahmanic India, village and forest divided up the totality of the habitable world. This opposition is Indo-European. The village is the domain of the teuta, the forest is the world beyond of the koryos.
Appears to me the devil be a knocking at the door of a house of worship.
Looky here, Pastor Pyle. Alvin York done shot his initials in this tree, A.Y., plain as day.
It was Alvin York, Ike Bumpkin, and Buck Lipscomb in their liquor.
Who was you saying it was? Who was you saying it was?
It was Alvin, miss.
These two zones, that of the forest and that of the village, are distinguished less by physical features than by the religious and social significance which is attributed to each of them. This religious and social significance, I am convinced, goes back all the way to the bios, nomadikos, of the early Indo-Europeans. The koryos bands live in the forest and sustain themselves by hunting. The forest is the world beyond the village. The significance of the forest is that it is the bush school where boys learn to be warriors, i.e. men, precisely because the forest is totally other than the village. Our young warrior, then, lives by theft because he has no property. By these depredations, and by the harsh conditions under which he lives, he is hardened for the works of war. His activities are legal in that they are sanctioned by Colt. They are preparing him for his eventual initiation into the teuta and return to the village. Rapto viver, writes Burkel, To live in the manner of wolves is the beginning of this initiation. The bond with the savage world is indicated not only on the geographic plane, life beyond the limits of the civilized life of the towns, but also on what we would consider a moral plane. Their existence is assured by the law of the jungle. In the following scene, York is riding out to kill a man, but God intervenes. York goes through a symbolic death and is born again in the church, the symbol of the teuta. The initiation transforms him from wild youth of the forest to responsible man of the village, which sets up the possibility of a homecoming after the war.
Makes me love everybody. Makes me love everybody. Makes me love.
I went out on the mountainside where I used to pray, and when it was all quiet and there was nobody around nohow, I returned thanks to God. He had given me my assurance that even if I didn't think it right, I should go just the same, and would be protected from harm, and would come back without a hair on my head injured. I don't know what I said to him. I disremember. I don't know that I said anything. I just felt. What a joyful time I had with them there hound dogs of mine. I done sat down and looked at them and patted them, and they wagged their tails and licked my hands, and then, ho ho, they bayed and sorter circled around and sorter lit out for the woods, just to sorter remind me that they hadn't been fooling round nohow while I was away, and they still knowed where the coons and possums and the foxes were. In a few days I had the old uniform off and the overalls on. I done cleaned up the old muzzleloader. It was all over. I was home.